So this is a game I played yesterday at the NCK12 Championship. It was a good game and it's an instructive game I'm going to go over today, and let's get into it. So I am the white pieces, my opponent is the black pieces. I start off with the English opening. And I go for a Botvinnik type setup with the C4 and E4 pawns. And I play D3, which is the main line like this. Usually in the Botvinnik system, what black tries to do is have some queenside counterplay. And also he tries to reroute the knight. So after castles D3, usually in the system, black plays knight to E8 with the idea of after castles, he has knight C7 with the idea of going into E6 and then D4. Here, usually I can play with like F4 and then after E6 or knight E6, I have F5, but then he gets into here. So the idea is because white leaves a hole on D4, black wants to usually take advantage of that and occupy the D4 square. So that doesn't happen in the game, and my opponent is not well aware of this opening. And this is why I like to play these not super popular openings. That way I can trick my opponent sometimes into getting a severe advantage like I do in this game. So after D6, I play H3. The reason behind H3 is pretty obvious. I don't want bishop G4 or putting unnecessary pressure on this E2 knight that I have. So I play H3 after E5, which is the best move, sort of mimicking my pawn structure, completely normal. And then here I castle, standard stuff, knight D4. And then here I play F4. The idea is I want to play F5 eventually. I want to actually play G4 and then F5. That'd be really nice for me. And knight H5, my opponent made a big mistake. Now I actually can play F5. Reason being, even though he has more attackers on the F5 square, say he takes, I take, and he does knight takes, I have G4. This automatically wins because I have a fork. Same thing even if the bishop takes, I have a fork on G4. So going back to the position, here I take advantage. I play F5. I have a really solid position right now. So now, my opponent plays H6, it's a good move. I continue with G4, expanding on the king side. Knight to F6, retreating move, perfectly good. And here I play bishop to E3. It was a little quite unnecessary. I should have just went straight with the attack with the move G5. The reason being, after pawn takes, bishop takes G4, I have knight D5 coming in, and it's not looking great for black at all. But I wanted to play a little bit safe and like develop my pieces, so I play bishop E3 with the idea of queen D2, putting more pressure on the H6 pawn. And now, that's what happens in the game. Plays A6. It's a little too late to go on the queen side now. Usually in the Botvinnik, we do go on the queen side, but usually earlier on in the game where I don't have this massive attack on your king already. So A6, I play knight G3 with the idea of playing H4 while also defending this G4 pawn because I can't play H4 quite yet because this knight will take on G4. So I play knight G3 first, defending the pawn with my queen, preparing H4. Now she goes with B5, and I don't quite see it right here, so I go with H4. So here in the game I miss knight to H7, which is the best move for black, and this indirectly attacks the pawn on H4 with the queen. And now if you think about it, I can't actually defend this in a good way. I don't want to push because if I push on H5, this is very bad for me. It stops my attack after G5. So now I can't even make any further progress. Black's going to lock the position with F6 soon, and I have literally no kingside activity anymore. Very strange idea, but I think it works. I play king to F2, which is the best move. The idea is after queen takes H4, I have rook to H1, and after the queen moves to say D8, because of F6, I have knight to D5, kicking the queen again with tempo. So my opponent goes queen D8. This is what happens in the game, except what happens is after knight H7, I play king F2. My opponent captures on C4 first. He takes C4, it's all good. And then queen takes H4. And here I play rook to H1 with the idea of kicking the queen out. My opponent makes a mistake. For some reason, it's quite obvious, but my opponent plays queen F6, not seeing knight to D5, kicking the queen with tempo while also bringing a very important piece into the game, which quite surprised me. Because what I saw during the game was after queen to D8, I have bishop takes H6, bishop takes H6, rook takes H6, and then queen back to G5 with the idea of putting some serious pressure with queen to F4 or even queen to D2 after I was thinking queen to H1, but this is actually dead lost after queen to F4. In the game, I calculated queen to H1, thinking black could go queen D2 and then I have king G1. I'm perfectly safe here because there's no other like crazy checks or anything. But I actually missed queen to F4 here, and now this is actually quite lost. So going back to the game, queen G5 is what I saw, but this never happened. I'm lucky it never happened because I could have actually lost if I didn't pay close attention. My opponent plays queen to F6, which is a mistake. I play knight D5, taking advantage with the tempo. After queen retreats to D8, I take on H6, and here my opponent plays knight to F6, which the computer says is a good move, but it really isn't. It leads to a really nice sequence of mate sooner or later. It's a really nice sacrifice with the brilliant move involved. So here I play knight takes f6, bishop, queen takes f6, should have taken with the bishop. But because my opponent take with the queen, I have a really nice sequence of moves. Queen takes, I follow with g5, kicking the queen back to d8. And then I have bishop takes g7, king takes g7, f6 check, king g8. And now can you see a rook h8 check, which is a brilliant move. After king takes h8, I have queen to h1 check, king g8, queen to h6, threatening mate. The only possible way to defend is knight to e6, and I bring my other rook. Now this mate is unavoidable.